A warm greetings to one and all present here. I am Vedant Ganeriwala, and I will be co-hosting with Vasundhara Rajeshwari today. And it gives us immense pleasure to welcome you all to the opening ceremony of the third edition of Manhattan Model United Nations.
As Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore once said, happiness can be found in the darkest of times only if one remembers to switch on their lights. Manhattan MUN was started with the goal to help all of you switch on your lights in these dark times.
There's more to Manhattan MUN than just debating, deliberating, or making draft resolutions. The third edition of the Manhattan MUN is a fundraiser where we are donating all the proceedings of the delegate registrations to charity. We hope that this small gesture would help make a difference to the lives of people and who have been gravely affected by this COVID-19 pandemic.
With more than 280 delegates, we are proud to say that we are successful in generating enough proceedings to really help to make a difference. And now, without a further ado, I would like to call upon our president, Mr. Aryan Girdhar, to address the gathering with his wise words.
Thank you. Good morning, delegates. I, Aryan Girdhar, the president of Manhattan Modern United Nations, I'm here today with all of you. We hope that the present delegation will engage only to fruitful debates in order to make this conference productive and relevant. Let's all take wise decisions. Bear in mind that this conference is organized to make a better world and not to satisfy an individual will. I'd like to share with you the agendas for the committees. UN Women, deliberation on the achievement of equality between women and men as partners and beneficiaries of development, human rights, humanitarian action, and peace and security. International press, journalism and caricature. International Monetary Fund, review of initiatives to enhance support for member countries in pursuit of SDGs. AIPPM, discussing the status of liberalism and free speech in India with emphasis on privacy, dissent, and protests. After entering the plenary chamber, one might even feel a little intimidated, but it is mainly excitement in the faces of delegates, and it grows even more when they discover the pretzels and coffee table. When you look at the definition in the dictionary, it is defined by 3 words: lack of success, failure, and imperfection. It ultimately means that we don't value growth and learning. It means we don't value experience and struggle, and our obsession with winning means that we're actually letting go of what we could be learning at every single point. So I hope that this weekend you have been brave and courageous in your discussions. Have not been afraid to express your views. To those of you who do not win awards today, keep trying. There are always more conferences to get involved in. Learn from your mistakes, whether it is improving your public speaking skills, spending more time, whether it is researching issues or gaining confidence in the committee room. Being open to improvement is important. In the Security Council and General Assembly, we regularly raise the topic of human rights violations, even when it is uncomfortable for some of the other members for us to do so. Whether in Iran, Burma, North Korea, Syria, or elsewhere. Some Security Council members want to avoid engaging on these topics for a variety of reasons, but we're determined and unflinching in our commitment to shed light on our worst abuses in the world, including by bringing them to the UN Security Council. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Mr. Aryan Girdhar, for this kind word. Now I would like to call upon our honorable chief guest, Mr. Kiri, to say a few words. Mr. Kiri is an experienced peace, political, and humanitarian worker with a demonstrated history of working in the international organization. Skilled in international relations, government relations, and non-governmental organizations, refugees protection and assistance, humanitarian assistance, and policy analysis. After completing his master's degree from Jawaharlal Nehru University, he maintains strong international relations and is a social services professional. Over to you, sir.
Okay. I'll just first change the screen type. It looks a bit weird to be looking at myself and speaking. Okay. So, good morning to all of you. A good start to the weekend, by having a lot of deliberations. Quite good to know also the organizers are a good fan of Harry Potter. So, very inspiring quote from there. So, well done to that. And also, many congratulations for that noble thought of donating the proceeds, from what you are going to gather from the fees that you're charging all the delegates here. All the pocket money goes to charity. That's a very good thought. So with those thoughts, foremost, I would like to thank you for inviting me here, for having me here, and giving me the opportunity to speak to you. And secondly, to extend my congratulations to all the delegates and also to the organizers for organizing such a brilliant MUN with more than 153 participants. Well, as it often happens, like when I come to these MUNs, I always think, what should I talk about? What has not been said about refugees? What is it that one thing I should bring to the table, which would give you a fresh perspective? And often it happens that I think what really works with me and works with all of us over here is to basically give it a human face. When we often say that, there are 79, or recently the numbers have changed. UNHCR has released a global report on forced displacement yesterday, and the numbers have moved up from 79 million to 82 million. It might just feel yet another number, but these are 82 million lives. Just imagine 82 million people forcefully displaced from their home. And when I say forcefully, that force could be of any nature. Your houses could be bombed. You could be targeted because the way you speak, the way you think, the kind of political opinions you have, or maybe attending an MUN for that matter, as small as that. So just imagine for a moment that for all one fine morning, there is a violence on the street, and you have 10 minutes or less than 10 minutes to just pack and run away. And you don't know where you have to run away. You have no plans. You don't know how long you have to run away. You have no choice. If you don't run away, you'll be killed. So with that kind of a thought, I would like to basically begin by saying that when you deliberate about the issue of refugees, when you think about the refugee issues, try to segregate it from the issue of migrants. Often what we do is that we club refugees and migrants into the same category. Of course, people move. All of us move. Perhaps in future, you will all go to many, many, many good universities. You'll move. You'll be making a choice. You'll be planning your move. You'll be getting visas. You'll be paying your fees well in advance so that you can secure your seats. That is all very planned. And that kind of a movement is more of a migrant movement, which is very different from a refugee movement. And often you would see that countries would not make that distinctions. And would now, when you don't make that distinction, what are the repercussions on the person as a refugee? For example, me along with some other person are moving in the same, crossing the border. I cannot go back home because I will be killed. The person who's traveling with me can go back home because he's just coming for a good economic prospect. So this is a very important distinction to make, because you cannot send refugees to a place where their life is in danger. This is a very basic understanding about refugee protection. You cannot protect refugees unless or until you allow them access to a territory. Think about, again, there is a violence on the street and somebody is banging on your door and they're asking for some form of protection from you. How can you protect the person? Can you tell him that stand on the street and I will ask my parents and then let you in? Perhaps by the time you'll get permission from your parents, it'll be too late. The person would have been shot on the street. So access is a very, very important component of any form of refugee protection. You need to allow refugees access to the territory where they can seek protection. If you do not allow access, you cannot protect. Once they are in your home, Once they are in your home, then you can decide, what kind of assistance do you want to provide and for how long. And you should not, and if the violence continues for 2 days, 1 week, 1 month, you should not send them out to die. It's a basic humanitarian thought. And you do not need laws around it to basically make you feel or understand that it's wrong to kill humans. It's you don't need to sign convention. You don't need to basically have a law to tell you that killing human beings or saving life is a wrong thing. It's what makes us human. So this is the basic thing I just wanted to bring to the delegates who are there. When you discuss about these crises, think it from a human crisis perspective. And also think it from a human crisis perspective, because out of these 82 million people who are forcefully displaced, half of them are children. Just imagine that you don't have any hope for the future. Just imagine that you do not know where your next class would be. Or if you are not in school for 4 years, what are you going to do next? You may have dreamt to be a doctor while you were in class 1, but the violence broke out and you were never able to complete your class 6. All your primary school, you were never able to complete. What about your dreams of being a doctor? What about your future? A child who had such a brilliant dreams and aspirations is left uneducated. It's basically a lost generation. So when you deliberate in your MUN, think about those children. Think about those 50% of those children, around 40 million of those children who do not have a future, who may not be able to complete their primary education. What as you as a delegate in the model United Nations can do for them? How can we solve for that problem? How can we ensure that everybody is able to get access to primary education? Just give me a second.
Delegates, please turn on your cameras.
Sorry for that. That was okay. So when you think about the refugee issues, think from the perspective of the child who would need education, from a mother who would need nutrition for her children. Often why do your parents go to work, or why do your mother cook meals for you, just to make sure that you grow up healthy? A lot of refugee families still think about where would they get the next meal on the table, because many of them do not have right to work. If you do not have right to work, where are you going to earn the money to buy the food? That's another challenge. It's not a problem for a refugee to solve. They are very willing to work. They're very hardworking people. They would like to go out and work, but then there is no enabling environment. When you do not allow people to work, where are they going to go and find work? I think that's another challenge you should discuss. How long can a person survive without work? Because if you're not earning today, eventually you might be in a better condition because of your saving, but slowly and gradually your savings are going to dry up and you will become impoverished. And once you hit poverty, it's not only a humanitarian challenge of a refugee protection, but it also becomes a protection challenge and also a developmental challenge, because then you'll have more poor people in your below the poverty line. So you have many of the crises around the world. Now, another thing which you will notice is that many of the crises around the world, be it Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Africa, many of the conflicts in Africa, or Myanmar crisis, which is a very recent one, are very protracted. With protracted, I mean they've been elongated for a very period of many periods of time, over a period of decades. Now, what does it mean? It means that the person cannot return to his home till the conflicts are resolved, because apparently his home may be bombarded. Apparently, the people who were looking for him, who were after his life, are still out there. And if it stays there for 10 years, what does it mean? It means that a person who's living in asylum with no right to work, with no right to education, with no access to a future, has basically an entire lost family. That's something which you would have to deliberate on, because one is to assist refugee and the other is to basically solve the crisis which are producing refugees. So conflict resolution is a very, very important component when you talk about refugee protection, because it's the conflicts which are producing refugees. If there are no conflicts, there'll be no refugees. And it's a very sad fact that when the entire world was locked down because of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020 and 2021, the chances and the appeals were that the conflicts would resolve, or there will be a temporary halt in the conflicts. It did not happen. You saw a surge of people fleeing persecution while we were at the comfort of our homes, where we were trying to escape the coronavirus which was out there. There were many people who were out in the open trying to fight for their life, not from the coronavirus, but because of the conflict. So deliberate about the key conflicts in your region, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and see how those could be resolved. What are the political forces behind it? And a lot of time you would see that a resolution to a refugee issue often lies in politics, the political will of the ruling government. Because you're talking about people who are foreigners, you're talking about people who are displaced. So also deliberate around how can you basically engage with the governments to basically ensure that conflicts do not happen, and if they have happened, how can they be resolved? I think that could be another question which you as a delegate could speak about. Now, maybe towards the tail end of my intervention, perhaps it's not all is not lost. I mean, of course, the situation for refugees is very hard. The situation for refugees is very miserable because it's very difficult to imagine what kind of life they live. But then you'll also see a lot of stories of resilience, a lot of stories of determination of the refugees themselves. For example, in the city of Delhi, there is a refugee nurse. She's a nurse from Afghanistan, somebody called Marwa. She got an opportunity to do her nursing course in India. She completed her nursing course, and when the COVID pandemic hit in 2020, she was on the front line. When there was a shortage of medical staff, she was on the front line helping her neighbors, helping the hospitals to basically cure the ill or the sick persons. So it also shows that given the opportunities, the refugees will come forward and help their own host communities, would help the countries they are living in. Or a case of some 40 refugee women who stitched more than 60,000 masks in India, and they distributed it for free of cost to the very vulnerable, their neighbors, their host communities. Again, a very good case is that if you provide them an opportunity, they'll help you. Or in an Iranian refugee who's living in Pune, he basically cooked meal and distributed it for free to every poor person on the street. So I'm sharing all these examples from the perspective that see refugees not from the perspective of a burden, but from a perspective that you get more skilled people to basically help you, provide them an opportunity, treat them as a guest as long as they are in their countries, in your country. Nobody would like to live in a refugee status forever. If you ask refugee what do they want, they will say, I want to go back home. Because what they never chose to leave their country. So their only natural instinct is to go back. So till the time they are in the country of asylum, till the time they are seeking asylum, treat them humanly, treat them in dignity like you would like to be treated. Because if tomorrow anybody could become a refugee. So, and provide them an opportunity to help the society, provide them an opportunity to contribute to the country. So that you don't see them as a burden, and when they go back to their home, they go back happy with good memories of asylum, with good memories because they are your neighbors. Ultimately, they are not going anywhere. They are going to Myanmar, which is your neighbor. They are going to Afghanistan, which is your neighbor. They're going to Sri Lanka, which is your neighbor. They're not going far away. So you want neighbors who have good memories of the people here. They should go back with good memories, saying that, oh, I lived in Delhi, or I lived in Kolkata, or I lived in Jaipur. People are so lovely. They treated me so well. And because of their opportunity, I'm an engineer now, and I can construct a bridge that connects my village to the city in Afghanistan. Now I can build a hospital in Myanmar. I can teach children in Sri Lanka. You should send people back with that kind of a hope. I think with that, I would like to end, and would just like to again re-emphasize that refugee issue is not an issue for refugees to solve. It becomes an issue because the people who are solving it are unable to solve it. So the delegates of MUN should take up the issue as their own issue the people themselves are never an issue. It becomes an issue because you're not able to handle it or you're not able to solve it. So over to the organizers, and once again, thank you so much for having me here. And it was a pleasure speaking to all of you. And good luck for the MUN challenge, and hope the best team wins. And maybe I would like to end something with Dumbledore or maybe a Harry Potter quote. It's like, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. Very deep quote. Think about it. And back to you, the organizers.
Thank you, sir. That was truly inspiring, and it's an honor for you for us to have you here.
Before we move forward, we also have a Q&A session with Mr. Kiri Atri. So if the delegates have any questions in mind about what Kiri sir talked about, you can raise your hands. We'll send you a request to unmute, and then you can ask a question and get it clarified from Mr. Kiri. Uddhav Gupta, I've sent you the request. You can ask a question.
Yes, sir. So I would like to know your thoughts about CA and NRC, as it's very important for this issue.
Now, very good question. Question which is often asked. Now, again, CAA and NRC are two separate issues. NRC is a National Register for Citizens, and CAA is a Citizenship Amendment Act. And NRC is an exercise which is ongoing, basically to find out who is a genuine citizen of the country. It has, as of now, as the process goes on, every country has the right to know who is their citizen, who's not their citizen. Every country has the right to know who's living on their territory for various purposes, right from the purpose of knowing who to assist, and also from the purpose of planning, and also from the purpose of security. So I think it's an ongoing process. NRC is an ongoing process it'll be difficult for me to comment on that. But suffice to say that every country has a legitimate right to know who the citizens in their country are. But then it depends how that process is conducted. The process should be conducted in a manner that it evokes the confidence of the people. People should be confident about that. It shouldn't lead, it shouldn't cause a panic. It shouldn't cause fear in my mind that what if I'm not in that book? That fear shouldn't be there. So I think it's a process of generating confidence among the people that the process is fair and the process will not genuinely target, and also the people who are left outside the registers, to make sure that you're not leaving them without protection. You're not leaving them without an identity. I think that's another important issue one can look at. But again, it's an ongoing process. Hope that it generates enough confidence. It doesn't leave people who are not without any identity. It doesn't basically lead to a difficult situation for vulnerable population. Now, in terms of the CAA, is basically, again, is the government's, you should ask the government spokesperson on it. But what my understanding at a personal level is that, it tries to solve the problem for a certain group of refugees. Tries to solve the problem for a certain group of refugees by fast tracking. It doesn't change anything. It just puts you on a queue, but asks you to maybe have like a business class queue or a first class queue when you go to the airport. You see the lines are shorter. The lines are shorter. So what CAA does is fast track the citizenship for the people coming from particular religion and people coming from particular country. So it's good in a way that it solves the problem. It's bad in a way that it leaves out certain population. So it's a mixed bag. It's a very good dessert, or it's a very good dish, but it is may have a lot of spices which might upset your stomach. So you like this as a good dessert, but it's too sweet, or it's a dessert with too much salt. So it's a good thing, and it's also leaves a sour taste because it leaves around a particular group of people. But again, it's a political issue. Again, not commenting on as UNHCR, but something from my own personal understanding, and it's something which is ongoing again. So it's a good and a bad thing both. Good because it solves the refugee status for a particular group of people. For example, Hindu Sikh refugees coming from Afghanistan. They've been living in India for many, many decades. So it's a good thing for those families, you know, who will eventually have the opportunity to call India their home. Or it's a good thing for you know, refugees coming from Pakistan who have been living here for many decades. But it's also worrying for some group of refugees because they're left out. So that left out part is something which again is at the discretion of the government to decide, you know, who they want to do it. But ideally, everything should be universal. Ideally, everything should not discriminate between people in a similar situation. If two people are similarly placed, you should provide equal opportunity to them. But then again, I mean, like foreigners and you know, who to allow within your border is a sovereign discretion, way beyond my paycheck to comment. We can have next question.
The China Daily, I asked you a request to unmute yourself.
Good morning. I had a question on how the UNHCR operates for internally and externally displaced peoples in regions such as Sudan, South Sudan, Iran, and Afghanistan. How does the UNHCR operate for asylum for externally displaced peoples and for internally displaced peoples?
I think that's a very good question. Now, maybe I'll take a step back before I answer that question. Now, a lot of time people get displaced within their countries. You know, some of them have an opportunity to escape the country or cross the international border. Now, for a particular person to be a refugee, crossing an international border is of essential importance, because that's when you will be able to claim asylum. And many people who may be in a very in a situation which made refugee flee in the first case may not be able to cross the international borders. They may be identified as internally displaced. You would have noticed that a lot of countries, a lot of debates, and I think something which you should also read about is offshore processing of asylum claims or offshore detention centers for asylum claims. Now, what does that mean? You do not allow refugees to cross international border and process their claim before even they can enter your territory. It's an ongoing debate. Read about it from you know, what happened in the islands around Australia. Read about what's happening in Europe. One of the countries is taking that measure of offshore processing of the asylum claim, and that's been heavily criticized. You know, it's heavily criticized because again, it's an access issue. Now, in terms of how does UNHCR help the refugees and internally displaced? Now, UNHCR has a mandate over both the population. But when it comes to IDPs, there is a different way in which you know, system works. There is something called as a cluster system, because the people are in their own country, and people might have multiple needs. So there are many organizations who may be interested in helping them. For example, let's take a classic case of South Sudan. Now, there might be IDPs, and to handle those IDPs, you will have something called as a protection cluster. Now, what does that mean is basically a lot of UN agencies, a lot of civil society, government officials would come together to form a coordination group to help the IDP population, because they are within their own territory and there are many organizations, many measures are being taken to coordinate their efforts. Now, once they cross international border, for example, this is the classic case of IDPs where you need to have a coordination mechanism to coordinate all the efforts. And the protection of the state, basically citizens, they are your own citizens. You know, if you are internally displaced, you technically continue to be the citizen or continue to have the protection of their own state. But when you become refugees, that protection of the sovereign state where you were first a citizen may not be available. So you are seeking protection from a country where you've taken asylum. For example, I moved from country A to country B to seek asylum. I'm asking country B that either my country A is unwilling to protect me or they're unable to protect me. So I'm coming to you to protect myself. Or it maybe to say something in a very layman language, in your home, who's responsible for your protection? It's your parents, right? Your parents are supposed to protect you. Your parents are supposed to look after your well-being. What if your parents start beating you? What if your parents start being abusive? You may just leave your house, run away one morning, and just go to your neighbor's house or your relative's house or your friend's house saying that, please protect me, my parents are not protecting me, my parents are beating me. Then, for example, your friend's parents might, take you in their house, call the child protection services, and the child protection services will say, okay, now I will protect you. Why they will protect you is because your parents have refused to do it or they're unable to do it. Such is the case of the people also when they flee the countries. They're basically seeking the protection of a new country. And it is up to basically there are international laws around it. There are international conventions around it, how you should treat certain people, how you should treat these people. There is International Refugee Convention. There are human rights laws. There are human rights conventions, whether it's for civil and political rights, whether it is for cultural, social, and economic rights. There is Child Rights Convention, thematic conventions for the group women, CEDAW, which is for protection of women. Then there is also for persons with disability. All these thematic conventions, all the human rights conventions mention about the issues of refugees and how they should be protected. Because basic protection of life is provided to everyone. It's even provided in your constitution. It's provided in our constitution where there's something called as right to life. That everyone who's in the territory of India should have right to life. What does that mean is that you should not kill that person. If that person is being killed, save him. So read those conventions, not only from the refugee convention perspective, but also read the other conventions which are in place. The thematic ones, the specific ones for specific groups, for example, CRC, especially at 2 places do mention about how to protect refugee children. And that those are the ways the countries of asylum have been asked to protect children, or protect women, or to protect refugees in general. So those will provide you a blueprint in order to see, what is the standard of treatment for a refugee. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Asaduddin Owaisi, you have been recognized for your question.
Thank you, sir, for the recognition. So I have a very simple question. So many a times we have seen countries, including our country, India, when there is a report sent by the UNHRC, specifically on the Human Rights Commission and on the certain human rights violations, many countries reject that report on the basis of false claims. So I would like to ask, what is the method through which these reports are formed by UNHRC and how much are they reliable?
Okay, I think it's a very common confusion between UNHCR and UNHRC. UNHCR is the United Nations, Human Rights Commission, UNHRC, and UNHCR is United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The reports which you're talking about is produced by the Human Rights Commission, which is a separate one. And we often get asked questions, not only from you, but from media, but many people, that you came out with a certain report and what are your thoughts around it? But it's a different agency altogether. It's a Human Rights Commission which formulates those reports. I would not be an expert to comment on it, but could fairly just give you an idea about how those reports are formulated and how much reliability, I don't know. I mean, you need to ask Human Rights Commission how much reliable their reports are. But fairly to say, the reports are formulated by independent experts. Independent experts who are basically have an expertise in this area and have zero interest in terms of their political inclination. So in terms of how those reports are formulated, I can guess, or I can only say that they have, they're formulated by people who are neutral. They're formulated by people who are expert, and they're formulated by people based on their inputs from the field and their own expertise in that area. So in terms of, reliability or, allegations by the member states about the reliability, I think it's something has to be seen on case-by-case basis, has to be seen on what are the allegations. And you may have to speak to somebody from the Human Rights Commissions to ask about the report. But I think it's fairly to say that, they are independent They are neutral and based on facts which are shared with.
Thank you, sir. Foreign Minister Vin Saxena, you have been recognized for your question.
Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure asking you a question. I would like to ask, like, how does the UNHRC like works in a communist country differently, according to the rules of the government, like situation in China of Uyghur Muslims. So that's a very relevant situation. So does the UNHCR works differently in communist country than in democratic countries?
Okay. I'm just putting this difference in the chat because I often see people making mistake. And so again, UNHCR is Refugee Agency, HRC is Human Rights Commission. Again, what you're referring to is for a Human Rights Commission. Again, not an expert in that area for you to respond, but I think fairly to say that UN functions in a very independent manner and fairly equally across all the countries. So it doesn't have different standards for different countries. That is something which I can add over here, that there are no separate standards for, say, a communist country or separate standards for say, a democratic country. The UN works on its charter, which is fairly well defined, which fairly defines how UN is going to work. And that's how it works across the country. So there is, in terms of how, people are reporting based, I mean, like, that's not a question. I don't see, at least for my agency and like UNHCR or for UN in general, there is no separate norms to operate in a communist country or separate norms to operate in a democratic country, or we don't, like, what is a better way of ruling the system is also, I'm not sure if I can comment or say anything about it, but suffice to say, UN operates on its charter, which fairly treats everyone equal and fairly sees everyone in equal rights. So no separate, way of dealing with different systems of governance are there.
Thank you, sir, for engaging in this fruitful Q&A session. If there aren't any further questions, we'll now move on to a special performance by Mr. Ashmeet Singh. Ashmeet is an 18-year-old singer-songwriter and an amateur producer. He's a self-taught and diligent artist, singing from a young age of 8 with a dream of delivering his feelings and emotions to the world through his music. He recently released his debut original, Mere Heart, on all music platforms and has been uploading content on his Instagram page since the last 2 years. Over to you, sir.
Hi, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I am Ashmeet. As sir introduced me, I am 18 years old. I am a singer-songwriter and an amateur producer. And first of all, I would really appreciate if you guys will turn on your videos, because as naam pad ke, I really don't like kuch maza nahi aega se gaane mein. And if you guys know the songs, you can sing along, groove along, because काफी renowned से songs हैं तो. Okay, I'll start. Tell me if my guitar is audible. रब की कवाली है इश्क कोई, दिल की दिवाली है इश्क कोई, महकी सी प्याली है इश्क कोई, सुबह की लाली है इश्क. सोचूं तुझे तो है सुबह, सोचूं तुझे तो शाम है, मंजिलों पे अब तो मेरी एक ही तेरा नाम के है तुझे बताना, तेरे वास्ते मेरा इश्क सूफियाना, मेरा इश्क सूफियाना, मेरा इश्क सूफियाना, तेरे वास्ते मेरा इश्क सूफियाना, मेरा इश्क सूफियाना, मेरा इश्क सूफियाना। तेरे बिन जी नहीं लगदा, तेरे बिन जी नहीं सकदा, तुझ पे है वारे मैंने हारे दो जहां, कुर्बान मेहरबान कि मैं तो कुर्बान, सुन ले जरा तेरा कुर्बान। You can sing along if you know the song. अब तू आती है बुलाती है, से यूं गिराती है, किसों में पाँव में बस तेरी, जब बारिशें बरसती है पागल जैसे तिरकती है, तुम जैसी हो बस वैसी ही रहो। अल्फाज क्या कहूँ मैं, बेचैन सा रहूँ मैं, तू बिन कहे ये हाल जान ले, मौसम मोहब्बतों के लम्हे ये चाहतों के अपने लिए बने हैं मान ले, फिर क्यों फासला, तुम कहाँ और हम कहाँ, गजब का है दिन देखो जरा, ये दीवानापन सोचो जरा, तुम हो अकेले हम भी अकेले, मजा आ रहा है कसम से, कसम से, देखो करीब से मिले नसीब से, आएगा पल ये फिर कहाँ, आज अचानक तुमसे मिले हैं, ये तो नहीं है बेवजह, पूछो जरा इस दिल से हमें मिले मुश्किल से, कल फिर ना हो जो यहाँ, गजब का है दिन देखो जरा, ये दीवानापन सोचो जरा, तुम हो अकेले हम भी अकेले, मजा आ रहा है कसम से, कसम से, दम दरा मस्त मस्त दरा दम मस्त मस्त दरा दम ओ हमदम बिन तेरे क्या जीना, दम दरा मस्त मस्त दरा दम मस्त मस्त दरा दम ओ हमदम बिन तेरे क्या जीना, तेरे बिना बेसुआदी बेसुआदी रतियाँ हो सजना, तेरे बिना बेसुआदी बेसुआदी रतियाँ हो सजना, ओ रुखी रे ओ रुखी रे काटू रे काटे कटे ना, दम दरा मस्त मस्त दरा दर दम दम ओ हमदम बिन तेरे क्या जीना दम दर मस्त मस्त दर दम मस्त मस्त दर दम दम ओ हमदम इश्क में ही जीना दिल का दरिया बह ही गया इश्क इबादत कर ही गया खुद को मुझे तो सौंप दे मेरी जरूरत तू बन गया बात दिल की नजरों की सच कह रहा तेरी कसम तेरे बिन न लेंगे एक भी दम तेरे कितना जाने लगे तेरे साथ हो जाएंगे खत्म तुझे कितना जाने लगे तूने जो ना कहा मैं वो सुनता रहा खामखा बेवजह ख्वाब बुनता रहा जाने किस की हमें लग गई है नजर इस शहर में ना अपना ठिकाना रहा दूर जाता रहा पास आता रहा खामखा बेवजह ख्वाब बुनता रहा दर्द पहले से है ज़्यादा खुद से फिर ये किया वादा खामोश नजरें रहे बेजुबान अब ना पहले सी बातें हैं बोलो तो लब थर थराते हैं रास दिल का ना हो गया के असर कोई हम पे नहीं हम सफर में तो है हम सफर में नहीं दूर जाता रहा पास आता रहा खामखा बेवजह ख्वाब बुनता रहा Okay, thank you. This was my bit that I prepared. If you have any requests, you can drop them in the voice in the chat box. I'll definitely sing it if I can. Like if I know the songs. Okay, Mera Haath. All right. Okay, so those of you who don't know, Mera Haath is my debut original. It's out everywhere. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, or YouTube if you want. So this was a song that I wrote like 2 years ago, and I released it a couple of months ago. So. मेरा हाथ थाम तू चल जरा तू जहाँ मेरी रूह है वहाँ चलते चलते थक गया हूँ, रुक जरा तू, मैं जाने के बिना रुका, सांस थमने लग गई है, फिर न जाने मैं तुझसे कह ना सका। साथ हम थे जहाँ, अब कहाँ तू कहाँ, क्या कभी कुछ सुना अनसुना कह रहा, कहते कहते थक गया हूँ, सुन जरा तू, मैं जाने के बिना रुका, सांस थमने लग गई है, फिर न जाने क्यों तुझको लगे सब धुआं, दिल के किनारे रुक जाता हूँ मैं कभी, ना समझ तू गलत, गलती मेरी थी, तू था सही, लापता फिर रहा मैं कहाँ, खो गया ढूंढता बेवजह रास्ता, दिल मेरा खो गया हूँ, ढूंढती हूँ तुझको मैं क्यों, एक ऐसी पहेली बता, तू कभी तो आएगा ना, ये दिलासा मैं खुद को बस तेरा। Okay, so this was Mirat, and okay, Sing Perfect by Ed Sheeran. Okay, I can do that. Just give me a sec. I'll open up the lyrics because I know I'll mess up. Okay, जाने से पहले I'll definitely like to sing तुमसे ही. Okay, so not I would like to sing तुमसे ही. I would like to sing The Night We Met. That would be my last song. Just give me a sec. Okay. I found love for me, darling. darling, just dive right in and follow my lead. Well, I found a girl, beautiful and sweet, and I never knew you were the someone waiting for me. 'Cause we were just kids when we fell in love, not knowing what it was. How will I give you up this time? Darling, just kiss me slow. Your heart is all I own, and in your eyes you're holding mine. Baby, I'm dancing in the dark with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass, listening to our favorite song. When you said you looked a mess, I whispered underneath my breath, but you heard it. Darling, you look perfect. I don't deserve this. You look perfect tonight. Oops, I read Heather in the chat. I'll sing that. I still remember that of December, me in your sweater. You said it looked better on me than it did you. Only if you knew how much I liked you. But I watch your eyes as she walks by. What a sight for sore eyes, brighter than a blue sky. She's got you mesmerized while I die. Why would you ever kiss me? I'm not even half as pretty. You gave her your sweater. It's just polyester, but you like her better. I wish I were Heather. Watch as she stands with a hole in your hand. Put your arms on her shoulder. Now I'm getting colder, but how could I hate her? She's such an angel, but then again, kinda wish she were dead as she walks by. What a sight for sore eyes, brighter than a blue sky. She's got you mesmerized while I die. Why would you ever kiss me? I'm not even half as pretty. You gave her your sweater. It's just polyester, but you like her better. I wish I were Heather. Okay, so now I have my last song, The Night We Met. Then I'm gonna end the set. Just give me a sec. Okay. So this is my all-time favorite. Like, 'cause, 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 'cause now repaid is dead. I've been searching for a trail to follow again. Take me back to the night we met. And then I can tell myself, what the hell I'm supposed to do. And then I can tell myself not to ride along with you. I had all them, most of you, some and now none of you. Take me back to the night we met. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, haunted by the ghost of you. Take me back to the night we met. When the night was full of terror, and your eyes were filled with tears. When you have not touched me yet, take me back to the night we met. I had all then, most of you, some and now none of you. Take me back to the night we met. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, haunted by the ghost of you. Oh, take me back to the night we met. Take me back to the night we met. Take me back to the night we met. Okay, thank you so much. That was my set. I hope you liked it. You can follow me on Instagram for more content like this, and I definitely would love to hear your feedbacks. Instagram pe you can hit me up anytime. I reply to all my DMs. Thank you so much. Okay, have a great day. Have a great session. Thank you, Aditya sir, for calling me. It really means a lot. Okay, goodbye.
Sincere apologies, there was a power cut at my area. Now I would like to call upon our founder and secretary general Aditya Shresht Agarwal to open the ceremony.
Hi everyone, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's a tremendous pleasure for us to host the Manhattan Model United Nations conference here online. I welcome you all to this auspicious platform. I am pleased and impressed to be surrounded by so many bright and inspirational people. I know some of you have joined us here from England, Singapore, and Pakistan. We hope that you will enjoy the experience and feel that the adjustment you made in your routine for the time zone was worthwhile. I look forward to following your debates and discussions over the next 2 days. Our mission at Manhattan MUN is to connect the world to being affordable, equitable access to rights, and in particular, gender inequality. to all the world's people, wherever they live and whatever their circumstances are. Fortunately, this seems to be a big challenge that so many young people like Greta Thunberg, those attending climate strikes, also MUNers, that are people like you, seem to seem to have a keen take on the world. Isn't this why we are doing MUNs? Isn't this the very reason why we are doing MUNs? Being here and doing this conference gives us the confidence and skills we need, the experience of success, of progress, and yes, sometimes of failure, and the ability to tackle our generation's issues as soon as we are given a chance to. What I would like to dwell on on this weekend is drawing to a close is the work, the process that takes us towards success and towards our goals. The process sometimes includes failure. It is important to focus on learning and improving others rather than ourselves first, but then winning an award. I'll give you an instance. There was a lady in a marketplace. She saw Picasso and asked him for a self-portrait. He agreed. He drew a perfect picture in like 30 seconds. He then handed it back to her and asked for $30,000. She questioned how it could cost that much when it only took him 30 seconds. He replied, "It took me 30 years to be able to draw that in 30 seconds." It's amazing how so often the time taken to achieve success is forgotten. However, frequently we forget that lies beyond the tip of the iceberg, the shadowy section underneath the water. However, as you pursue your discussions over the coming days, please remember that 2/3 of the world is still offline. 2/3 of the world has no internet access and are therefore unable to benefit from the extraordinary wealth of knowledge, experience, social, business advantages of the entire online world. Your busy agendas here cover topics diverse such as the sustainable goals, deliberation on the achievement of gender equality, status of liberalism, and I'm delighted to see such broad range of subject matter for discussion. As young men and women, you hold the keys to future in your hands. Yours is the most connected generations that the world has ever seen. The connectedness offers fantastic opportunities for engagement and empowerment as information is accessed, used, created, and shared to build a knowledgeable society. It has been incredible to watch over the past few years as the voice of young people gain prominence and recognition worldwide, not only through your ability to mobilize and lobby online, but also the acts and actions taken by individuals and small or smaller groups from all over the world. I, the Secretary General of Manhattan Model United Nations 3.0, declare the conference open. Thank you.
I think with this, we have reached the end of this opening ceremony. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Delegates of UNW, AIPPM, and IP are requested to stay. Most of the committees are tomorrow. IMF starts at 3 p.m. today. The delegates of UNW, AIPPM, and IP are requested to stay in the meeting. The rest of you can leave the meeting. Thank you for being here in the opening ceremony of Manhattan Model United Nations.